working now. You hear us, Steve? I don't hear him.
Yeah, he can hear you, but you can't hear him.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Loud and clear.
Yes. And I can barely hear you guys, but it's there now. First time I logged on, I had no sound.
Okay. If I turn the sound on, right? That one. Am I off? Can you still hear us?
Yeah.
Okay. Love technology. So 5:30?
Yeah, it's 5:35.
5:34.
Ooh.
Technical difficulties.
Good evening. I'd like to call a meeting to order at the special emergency meeting of council Tuesday, June 18th. The intent of the meeting is to follow up on the zoning amendment application from the June 11th, 2024 council meeting. Moved by Councillor Clark, second by Councillor Corbett, that this meeting of council be open at 5:34 p.m. All in favor? Carried. And this is where you will give the report?
Yes. I believe each of you have a copy of the
Yeah.
report for today's meeting. So we're just here to provide further information regarding the deferred application from the June 11th council meeting. A little bit of background. The special zones are a planning term and are required for the purpose of our zoning bylaw. So it's the zoning bylaw, it doesn't capture every possible use for a building or a property within the municipality. So we've used one kind of more of an extreme, but a very easy example. So if somebody did come in and wanted to do an explosives building or the sawmill that was proposed to be here, those aren't things that are typically factored into the zoning bylaw. But then you do a special zone, and then that allows you to put in some conditions or anything that might be particular about that use that you would want on the property. It's not something that you would want on a property in the township, like just as a blanket, and the zoning bylaw kind of does the blanket. So special zoning bylaws allow you to do conditions and kind of stream it to the use that it's being proposed. Our zoning bylaw, I did look at other things. We did reach out to the planner and to the legal team. We looked at some other alternatives such as site-specific bylaws. They're essentially the same thing as a special bylaw. But our current zoning bylaw doesn't identify that any amendments would be through a special zoning bylaw, so we have to do it that way. I talked about the conditions. So if the Humphries place the residence first and then the garage, we wouldn't be here for an amendment because that meets the intent of the zoning bylaw, right? You can put up an accessory once you have a primary. So if in the future, so council, we have certain things that we're concerned about. And then because of in 2023, we did 6 properties that we corrected because there was accessory buildings prior to a primary business or primary house. So we rezoned, or we did minor variances to have them conform to the zoning bylaw through special zones. So, and I know that that's one of the concerns, again, because we're still dealing with some of those past infractions where there are people that are not using the accessory building that was built with the intent for what that it was built with, then they're not using it. So it is a lot more for the municipality to enforce. And that's why this particular zoning is sensitive. So in order to mitigate that, the zoning bylaw that is proposed does have some conditions on it. So it's still special zone 56. The conditions would be that there's no commercial use, and this is so the structure remains only for personal use, and any other use would require rezoning. The second condition is no other structure shall be permitted other than a residential building. And this condition ensures that only a house can be built to maintain the intent of the zoning bylaw. So it's not like more accessory buildings or a commercial building could be put on the property. It has to be a house. And the third condition is not to be used for the purpose of habitation. And this condition is for health and safety and for the purpose of the building code. So I think those three conditions on the proposed zoning, special zone, certainly address some of the mitigating factors that we have been dealing with. So into that. We did, township staff as well as the Humphries looked at building the garage on the adjacent property, which the applicant believed the topography did not provide an economical solution. We looked at a temporary use bylaw. However, it would require approval every 3 years. And if the next council did not approve to extend the temporary use bylaw, the Humphries could be forced to tear down the building. So in this situation, it's not good long-term planning, as the Humphries do not have a timeline in which they wish to build a house. But if they were planning within the next 3 to 5 years, then that would be a more favorable approach to reach the goals. The planning report was prepared and presented to council regarding the application on June 11th. A further report was prepared just prior to the meeting at the council meeting for June 11th, and our planning administrator did go through the history of the property on that report. Council deferred the motion and the bylaw to be considered at a special meeting, which we are here today. And council had suggested the option of merging the properties together to be what they were prior to the 2012 severance, as the accessory building could have been built as part of the campground property, and we wouldn't have had to rezone if it hadn't been severed in 2012. So we did reach out to Russell Christie of Bellboom particularly, and he confirmed that a severance can be canceled, and a title search would need to be is required prior to confirming that. Basically, he needs to ensure that the property that the severance originally came from hasn't changed ownership, and that so when they are converted back, it goes back into the same ownership. He also suggested that a zoning amendment is also a viable option for the purpose. Then council also suggested that they would cover future costs of the applicant if it were to be incurred in the reapplication of the consent or the zoning amendment when the applicants were ready to construct their single family dwelling on the subject property. So we've broken down those three options for council. So the cancellation certificate, in some situations, the original consent granted for a parcel of land may no longer be wanted or needed. And in these cases, the original consent can be canceled. Owners can apply to the consent granting authority, and in Bonneville, that is council, for a certificate of cancellation for the parcel that was previously severed. It may even be the case that the consent granting authority may require it as part of a condition for a new development or a new proposal. Once the certificate of cancellation is issued, the parcel would be treated as though the previous consent had not been given, and then it would merge with the neighboring lands owned by the same person. So again, under the Section 53 of the Planning Act, the title search is required to ensure that the original lands have not changed the ownership. The certificate would cancel the previous severance and would have to be registered to the title and transferred to the campground property. The cancellation would only apply to the parts of the severance subject to the zoning amendment for this special zone 56. The original severance also resulted in a transfer to roadway to the township, but this part would not be canceled. After the cancellation certificate is processed, the property would need to be rezoned to C3 to be incorporated back into the campground, as the rural zone still does not permit the construction of a structure prior to the residence. Once the Humphries retire or wish to build their new home, the property would need to go through the process of a consent again and be removed from the campground, commercial resort zone. And then of course, once it's out of the campground, then it does need to be rezoned, because Section 33 of the zoning bylaw only permits one dwelling for the owner, and the Humphries already have a dwelling on the campground, so it needs to be rezoned back to rural. So the The analysis of this is that it was confirmed that this would be acceptable by the legal team. There are many steps that need to incur now and in the future. It's the least economical, and the property would be merged and rezoned in 2024, and then at a future date, the reverse would need to occur. The property would have to be severed and rezoned per the consent file and the survey of 2012. And that's just to ensure that the cost would be lower and still result in the same, brings back to where we are today. This would be processed by the legal team, and they would look after the cancellation and staff, but staff can look after the rezoning back to the commercial for the campground. And then the zoning would require about 60 to 75 days for processing, and the application for that is $1,000. For the cancellation certificate, the timeline isn't known because it would be up to the lawyer. And then the fees will be approximately $3,000. And then these fees would apply when the process was reversed as well, whenever that did occur. The second option is the application to rezone the special zone 56. So you can rezone it to 56 as per the application and the planning reports. A special zone creates a new zone that applies only to the subject property in the application and only the proposed use identified. This has been the method used within the township since the original zoning bylaw was adopted in 2012. A proponent, this is whenever there is an amendment required. This application requires an amendment in order to construct a 30 by 40 personal storage building on the property prior to the primary use of a residence. So as we detailed, a special zone has been proposed to council to meet the requirements of the applicant. After considerable discussion on available options, the applicant has chosen to proceed with the request for the special zone. There are conditions outlined to ensure the use remains as proposed and council's concerns are addressed. Council may add additional conditions if you wish. And the current conditions are suggested to mitigate the concerns that have been realized on the other properties, which I was speaking about on our activities for 2023. So the special zone bylaw applies to the property and any future owners of the property, and they are bound to the same conditions and regulations that are outlined as is the applicant today. Your third option is to not permit the rezoning. Council can defeat the motion for the bylaw, which will mean that the property zone is not amended and no structures can be constructed or placed on the property until the primary residence is constructed. Then the applicant has the right to appeal this decision of council with the land tribunal within 20 days of the decision. And then if that were to happen, council would be responsible for hiring the legal team to represent their decision at the tribunal. So just in summary, there is option one, which is to defeat the special zoning, and then you can recommend to the Humphries that they apply for the cancellation certificate for the 2012 consent. If it's not approved again, the Humphries can consider, well, if the bylaw is not approved, and council has already suggested that you would support the consolidation of the property back together. So that would work. And then it's also been suggested by council, and there is a resolution further on, if that was the option to be chosen, that you would cover the cost for the fees and the cost for the reseverance when they did go to construct the house. Then option two is to accept the current special zone, and option three is to defeat the special zone bylaw. And then there is the copy of the bylaw that was in there with the conditions. Again, you can add additional conditions if you'd like.
I go back a moment, and we didn't have a motion to adopt the agenda or disclosure disclosure of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof. Anybody having any? No. Okay. Now we'll do the business.
Okay, start again.
Yeah. You ready?
We'll start all over. So I guess I can ask council what they're thinking, and then we'll ask Mr. Humphrey if what we go ahead with, if that's going to be acceptable. I'll start with Jason.
So a couple of questions. So if we're going to consider the special zone, like I'm past Mr. Humphries. So Mr. Humphries decides he's going to retire and he's actually moving to Florida and he's not going to stay here. So he sells the property as special zoned. That then new purchaser would have to build a residential as the next building. But this could go on in perpetuity. There is no mechanism, or is there a mechanism that would be a condition of sale of the property that a residential home be built? So if Mr. Humphries decides to sell, that the next owners would come into compliance with, knowing that they're buying a special zone.
Yes, so there'd be legal terminology for that, but that is possible. You could put that as a condition. You can
Okay.
request that he put that as a condition in the sale. Yes.
Yeah, and then my only other comment, which is kind of aside to this, so I understand the example of, I think it was a blasting.
Yeah.
But I mean, this is a pretty basic zoning principle that we're dealing with. It's not the really one-off of an explosive. So the example I get, and you said it's pretty extreme, but I mean, this is pretty straightforward in any zoning conditions of like residential and those are my comments for now. Are you looking for my thought process as to where I land on this, or just my questions?
That's your thoughts for now.
Thank you.
Donna.
Oh, should we not ask?
No, go ahead.
Okay, so first off, I'd like to say thank you for your patience, Mr. Humphries, and
I should have started with that as well.
yeah, I mean, and we really aren't meaning to put you through this. We just want to make sure that we're doing our due diligence, and I'm happy that we have some legal advice now and you know, some planning. I do have a question. Are you ready to build right now?
Well, what's happening now is we own a tours business. And in July and August, it's basically impossible. Like we do construction on the lake. I got my septic license. We do that kind of stuff. I work on boats, plus we run a tours business. So
you're busy.
Yeah, my January 4th start. Now I have the building picked out, the foundation plans, but I have to put 50% down for them to get the stamp. Like the last time, let's say back in January or February, the building inspector at that point said, yes, this is good, but you have to deal with this department, but you won't get the permit until I get the engineered stamps. And then I don't get the engineered stamp until I cough up 80 grand or whatever it is, right? So I don't know where we're at now because of timeline, but I'll say yes, I'm gonna definitely, if it's a yes today, that's my next step is
Okay. So I am asking that
I
because
don't know the timeline on ordering the building
Right.
and all that rigmarole that'll happen. after
yes,
this.
and again, I'm asking that because in here it says that you know, it's gonna take, what is it, 60 to 75 days if we were good to go with option one. So 60 to 75 days is not a reasonable timeline. If we wanted to, you know, do it kind of and get us back to a good place. We've got legal advice now. This will be no cost to you. I'm looking at timeline now.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Can I just clarify that the 60 to 75 days
Yes.
is if he consolidates all of the,
Correct.
right, okay.
Correct.
Which council can only suggest.
Oh, yeah, no, that's
Okay.
why I'm just asking these
Yeah.
questions, right? So again, I haven't, this is not, I'm just asking questions.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, at that point, I would completely, for sure, wipe out this building season, but I got a feeling it's already too late myself, just with how busy contractors are. I would
Yeah.
assume.
And then again, there's still a legal, the legal timeline too, right? So there, we're not sure. Okay, so that's my first question. And Well, and again, so I guess another, for option two, so your intention, sir, is to sell your camp and then build your residence, correct?
Yeah, I don't know if Ann ever passed that on, a big letter when I know Nikki got it. When we've lived in this township since 89.
Mhm.
We up to this point, I love living here.
Sorry.
We have no plans on going anywhere else. We own property across the lake also.
Mm.
I can't see living anywhere else. I hate cities and I don't want to live. But obviously, as we get older, we're forced into a
course.
corner there.
Of
But
course,
I can see with our business, we are dealing with retired people. We see how it happens, the progress on trying to be proactive and getting
And have a
stuff
plan.
done. Yeah, and if someone offered us a serious offer, we'd be selling it now. But I want to make sure that our kids, we have 3 kids, are for sure not wanting the business, because once we sell it, it's out of their reach for sure, right?
Right.
So those are all, but yeah, that's where we want to live.
Okay. So
We
would-
love Talon Lake. We love the road. Our other house was Talon Lake, on Shields Point Road.
Would it be fair then to say that, and to put in that, if and when you sell your camp or transfer it to your children or what have you, that the expectation is that you're gonna build a residence?
Oh, for sure.
Okay, so we can
Yeah,
put
that's
that
where
in as
we're
part of
gonna-
the condition? Yeah,
That's where we're gonna live.
okay.
That was the whole, like, the thing that's going on is, like, that always was the plan, but I know Ian mentioned that. My father's 86. He has a garage business that's been closed for a long time. That's where I grew up, working there from 12 years old on until I moved up north at 26. And he's quite a car enthusiast, has like street rods. He probably has, like 20 cars plus. And he has a buyer for his place that is going to waive all the environmental. And you know what's going on at Gagne's? You see, it's been torn
Yes.
apart since last November. That's the exact scenario that my dad's garage business has been there since the 50s. Our family bought it in the 70s. And he is so stressed out. He wants to be done. Like, he can't, those cars aren't sitting outside. Some are quite valuable and rare.
So he needs a place for them.
And I'm the only son, and that's where the cars are going. They're coming here. So that's why so annoyed at the timeline, because it was supposed to happen this summer. Or by the end of the summer, I should say, whatever. Anyway, that's the whole story. I don't want to live anywhere else. This is where we're living. We own property there. We love our business. We're just getting older and tired. It's 7 days a week. Like, we're still open right now. My wife's working there. It is an awesome business. We have awesome customers. Bonfield is a very nice place to live. People that will, when you need help, they're there for you, but they're not bugging you in your face either if you don't need help or whatever. Just a really good community. We've seen that time and time again. Anyway, that's the story, and I'm just, I think you can tell I'm annoyed and frustrated.
Yes.
When this seems like such a, in my mind, a simple thing, that I was on my way at one time, and now we're here again. So anyway, I don't know what else you want me to say, but I did talk to Rick Miller at Tulloch, who's our township's advisors there, I guess, at Tulloch. Because I want to say this one thing, is I left that meeting, other than being annoyed and frustrated, was I felt, holy smokes, Ann screwed me up. Now it's screwed me up. And that's what I got from mostly you. That Ann's the one that dropped the ball this time. And Rick said, no, she did exactly what she's supposed to do in that circumstance. So learn to trust your staff. You hired them for a reason.
We also have one,
Rick is
the
a
planner
professional.
on retainer for a reason though, too.
Yeah. Rick's professional, they're the professionals steering Ann to do what she's to do.
This wasn't in compliance in the first place, so now we're back to the same thing. So
Rick said this is exactly what should happen. I'm pretty sure he
What
knows a lot more
what did
than
Ed
you
say?
do.
Ed said you can definitely suggest that they be consolidated back to pre-severance, or you can do a zoning amendment. So those are the three options that you have. You can zone, you can approve the zoning, or you can request that defeat the zoning, not approve the zoning, and then suggest that all
see,
the properties go
there's
back
more
to.
options than what Rick Miller
consolidate.
said.
For sure.
So-
This is the simple and easy one. No money, no time.
Well, simple and easy is not always the good way to go, because it's gonna put us in future trouble.
Well, what kind of trouble?
Special zoning is not a good planning.
Is it a big hassle in this township?
We've been dealing with a lot of it, yeah.
Examples?
I can't give you examples.
I don't think there's one person
you
that's other
finished?
than you guys that would even know there's even
We'll
exists.
go to Dan.
I'm done, yeah.
I'm done.
Steve, have you got anything? He's gone. No.
Yeah, hopefully you guys can hear me. I just had a dinner for a former foster child that just graduated at high school that went a lot longer than what I thought. I'm still in the same boat as I was a few days ago. Trying to make sure that, the township's covered and that we're doing everything right, but moving this along as quickly and as cheaply as possible for Mr. Humphries. By the sounds of the report, to me, it sounds like the special zoning is maybe the way to go. But again, I just want this kind of moved along for him so that he can develop as he needs.
Okay. I'm going to give this out for who wants to sign it for the special owner, the first one. That's the first one.
Yeah, I don't want to screw this up. God, the pressure.
No.
So number
Number-
2 is to accept the current,
Right.
or the current special zone.
Yeah.
That's, yeah.
That's
So-
what number 2 is.
So move by, I'll move. I don't want to pre-assume 2, but I guess we'll call it a vote, right? You want a second? Does anybody want a
I
second?
can
Well,
second.
just write your name. And council recommends option, do we want to call 2 to a vote? Option number 2, which is accept the current special zone 56
With additional conditions.
with additional conditions. Okay, so number 2, for the purpose of the application, and further, the council of the township of Humphries hereby considers bylaw such and such read first, second, and third time hereby considered adopted. So there are a couple extra conditions that we just heard about tonight.
Do we just put those in?
Right. So the one that I have is that the Humphries shall construct a single family dwelling on the subject property upon the sale of the campground business.
Pardon?
So I have to add that to the bylaw.
Within a
With-
reasonable
Bylaw.
time?
Special zone 56.
Was there a second?
Oh, and-
Oh, sorry, I just have a question. We can tell somebody to build a house when they sell something?
In order
Within
to
a
get-
reasonable time, when it's a special zone.
Okay, that's why I'm
So,
asking.
yeah, the only other one, and again, it's great to hear the comfort of how much you love the township and that you're not looking to move to Florida, but if you look to sell, because tomorrow, as soon as we do this, or as soon as this passes, you could legally then sell that property as the day you build your garage to the next owner, and they would then be in legal non-compliance. Well, they would actually be in compliance with the bylaw. So I don't know if there's a way, and if you see it as a hardship, that we would just say, if you're gonna sell that property, the next owner would have to agree that they're gonna build a house there in some level of a reasonable time frame. So it's not.
Well, the
Just so it
bylaw
isn't
says that no other accessory structure shall be permitted other than a residential
Yeah, for
dwelling.
sure, and that's super clear for sure, but what's not necessarily clear is somebody could just buy it and live with the garage, not in the garage, but somebody could just have that piece of property with a garage and never see a house, ever.
Right. So there have been circumstances where there have been conditions and requests put on zoning bylaws, and that a house has to be built within like 2 years.
Yeah.
So, if you want to, I can add that should the Humphreys sell the property, the adjacent property, the subject property.
Yeah.
Subject. property.
I don't think, is that unreasonable? Like when you,
Well, I guess the only thing was, you got unforeseen things happen, like health, like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tomorrow, actually.
Yeah, we don't have a crystal ball.
All
No,
that kind of stuff, so
I get all
there
that.
have to be. Um. You know. Some kind of, I wouldn't want to have that fall on Nancy,
right,
you know what I'm saying, there's that kind of a thing,
So
or,
what would you be comfortable with?
well, I like the one, the next building has to be a
yeah,
residence.
Right.
So that covers, if I sell it, well, I guess,
you'd have to find a willing buyer, in my opinion, you'd have to find a willing buyer that would agree to, within 2 years of purchasing the
well, how
property. that
about
they
if
would
you
put-
worded it with let's say the scenario, something's, I'm gone.
Sure.
Or stroke or whatever. And so now, I can't see Nancy wanting. So let's say that upon the sale, if this property sells, like this property.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That there's a condition that a home has to or a building permit has to be applied within 2 years or
Right,
something like that.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
what I'm talking about, yeah.
Yeah, is that the same thing? Is that the same thing?
Yeah,
It's
that-
basically, so
Yeah,
either
because
you,
I wouldn't, that's something, because two friends have died of heart attacks.
Yeah, it's scary stuff,
And
right?
another one's in a stroke using
Yeah.
a walker, and they're.
You start facing your own mortality.
Some of my
Yeah,
age, so
yeah.
you never know what's gonna happen.
Nope.
So,
yeah, for sure. So the two conditions that I think, like, so if you were to sell your commercial property,
yeah.
you would then be building a residential.
Well, yeah, I need someplace to live.
Of
Yeah,
course.
yeah.
And if you decide that you're gonna forever run your business and health is never an issue, but you're gonna now sell that residential lot, we'll call it,
Yeah.
that the new buyer
Yeah.
would build a house within 2 years
Yeah,
or whatever.
I have no problem with that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
So I have it worded that should the Humphreys, and when I type it in, I'll actually say the Nancy Humphreys. Sell the subject property, that any future owner shall be required to build a residence within 2 years.
In the bylaw,
Yes.
put that in the bylaw.
Yeah. So those two conditions would be added to the special zone 56.
And the only reason is we could get 4 owners down the road and never have a house on that property.
Oh, yeah, I
Yeah.
totally agree.
Yeah, yeah.
I totally agree, because, we all know about people living in their garages, so,
Yeah,
well, and it sounds like it's gonna be a great garage too.
well, hopefully, yeah.
do we get to see the cars later?
Yeah, sure, yeah.
Cool.
So the bylaw, if we pass
Oh,
that,
I'm sorry. I'm part of it. Sorry.
So in the section where it says the bylaw and put the word, can you just add the words as amended?
Yep.
um,
Purposes of the application, and that is hereby considered by the read bylaw as amended by the
Yes.
number of that as
As
amended.
okay.
Be read.
Okay, I'll read this first one, and that's for the zoning special zone. Moved by Councillor Corbett, second by Councillor Clark, that council recommends option number 2 for the purpose of zoning applications said C1 2024 Humphries, and further that the council for the township of Bonnfield hereby considers bylaw number 2024-43 as amended be read a first, second, and third time and is hereby considered adopted. All in favor? 1, 2, 3. Okay, I got it. Carried.
So tomorrow I will reach out to make sure the legal terms are correct.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
we don't know the legal terms.
Yes.
So then do I go to this?
No.
No.
We're done.
Okay,
We're
good.
done.
I'd like to pass bylaw for air conditioning in this building.
So we need a
Move it.
Good, June.
to close the meeting. Okay, I just want to say, with respect to this, application and I know you've, had a long winter and that's probably the time that you wouldn't be busy, that you could be building. And I know you've been in our community a long time. You've been a volunteer for different organizations throughout the, economic development. You sat on that. And council does want to work with everyone to try and work with them. And not always the option is exactly what we start out with. But if we can go to a second option to try and to work with the individuals in our community, it certainly looks better for council and is better for the taxpayer. So next we have motion number 4, moved by Councillor McGinnis, second by Councillor Corbett, that the council adjourns a special
6:10.
meeting at 6:10. All in favor? Thank you, Steve.
Thanks, everybody.